A shy assistant sat alone at the wedding until the CEO leaned in. "Tonight, you are my wife." Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us get back to our main character. The string lights shimmer above the wedding ballroom, casting warm gold across polished tables and champagne flutes. Music drifts lazily through the air, a familiar melody that couples sway to as if the world outside does not exist. But in the far corner, at a table marked reserved, sits Lena Hart, a shy administrative assistant who has spent most of her 26 years trying to take up as little space as possible. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers knotted together to hide the tremble she cannot quite stop. She is here because the bride is her supervisor and everyone else brought a +1. She is the only one who arrived alone. A cold draft slips through each time the ballroom doors open. Lena presses her arms against herself. Her dress is simple, pale blue, bought on clearance last spring. She smoothed it 3 times already, but it still feels like it does not quite belong in a place filled with designer gowns and luxury suits. She lowers her eyes, pretending to study the flickering candle in the centerpiece. Anything to avoid seeming like the lonely girl at the corner table. That is when a shadow falls over her. A man's voice, low and steady, brushes the back of her neck before she even looks up. "Is this seat taken?" Lena startles. She lifts her gaze and freezes. Standing beside her is Elias Blackwood, the notoriously private CEO of Blackwood Industries. The man who owns half the skyline in this city. The man whose employees speak of him in hushed tones. The man who absolutely should not know she exists. Tonight he is in a charcoal suit tailored so sharply it almost reflects the lights. His presence seems to change the gravity in the room. Conversations falter as he walks by, but Lena had been too lost in her own self-consciousness to notice. She stammers, "Mr. Blackwood, I did not know you were invited." His eyes flick briefly across the ballroom, scanning the guests, the clusters of socialites, the circling cameras. His jaw is tight, controlled. A man used to managing storms, internal and external. "I was not planning to stay," he says quietly, "but I need something. And I believe you can help me." Lena blinks. "Help? You?" He leans down slightly, close enough that she catches a hint of cedar on his suit, close enough that, for a moment, the noise of the ballroom fades behind the pounding of her heart. "Tonight," he murmurs, "I need you to act like you are my wife." Lena's breath catches. She must have heard wrong. "What? Why me? I am just an assistant." That is exactly why he replies, his voice low but unyielding. "You are not tied to this circle. You are not part of the gossip mill. And right now I need someone who does not play games." He reaches into his inner pocket and places a thin envelope on the table. The edge gleams under the candlelight, revealing the corner of a formal contract. "Think of it as a business arrangement," he says. Lena's pulse roars in her ears. "A contract, a fake marriage with a billionaire. This is impossible. This is unreal. This is why me," she whispers again, barely able to breathe. His gaze softens by a fraction, just enough to make something inside her tremble. "Because Elias says you are the only person in this entire room who looks like she does not want anything from me." Lena's heart twists. The ballroom music swells, the bride laughs, somewhere across the dance floor, and for a brief second, Lena wonders if she fell asleep at her table, dreaming something absurd. But the envelope is real. His presence is real. The weight of the moment presses down on her chest. She swallows hard, staring at the contract, then at the man who holds more power than anyone she has ever met. A fake marriage, just for tonight. She does not know it yet, but this single whisper in a crowded wedding will change everything. And it all begins right now. Lena's pulse thunders in her ears as the envelope rests between them like a quiet dare. The wedding music softens into something slow and romantic, but the world around her feels strangely still. She tries to swallow, but her throat is too dry. "Mr. Blackwood, I do not understand," she murmurs. Elias does not sit. He stands beside her chair with a silence that radiates pressure, as if he is conducting a negotiation even here, even now, in the middle of someone else's celebration. His eyes stay on her face, not demanding, but studying her reactions with unnerving precision. "You will tonight," he says. "But not here." He lifts the envelope from the table and extends his other hand to her. Lena stares at it. His palm is steady. Her own hands tremble. "Come with me," he says softly, "just for a moment." She hesitates only long enough to imagine what everyone in the ballroom must be thinking. To them he is a billionaire whose presence shapes entire industries. To her he is the man who just asked her to play his wife. Lena rises. He leads her out of the ballroom and into a quieter hallway lit by soft wall sconces. The muffled music feels distant now, fading behind the heavy doors. She clasps her hands together, trying to keep her breathing steady. Elias glances down the hall, then opens the contract envelope. He offers her the first page. "This is a temporary arrangement," he explains. "I need a companion for a series of public events. Tonight is the first. There are terms and boundaries. You will not be asked to do anything beyond the contract." Lena reads the top lines. Her eyes widen. Clause 1 appear as Elias Blackwood's spouse at designated functions. Clause 2 maintain confidentiality of the agreement. Clause 3 no physical expectations or personal obligations outside public settings. She looks up. "Why would you choose me? I am just an assistant. I am not trained for this world." "You are honest," he replies. "And honesty is rare. That is the currency I need right now." Her breath wavers. He continues, voice even controlled. "There is pressure surrounding me. My board expects stability. Certain investors are attempting to force my hand on decisions that do not align with my values. A married image gives me room to maneuver. It buys me time." Lena searches his expression. "Why not choose someone from your own circle?" "Because people in my circle come with agendas," he answers. "You do not." She lowers her gaze to the contract again. Elias lifts his hand slightly as if sensing her fear. "You may decline," he says. "I will not be offended. I will simply find another solution." But Lena sees something in his eyes that was not there before. A tension, a hint of fatigue beneath the perfectly controlled exterior. A man who has been cornered by the very world he built. Her voice is small. "And if I agree, what happens after tonight?" "Then we move forward with 5 events," he says. "You will be coached, you will be protected, and you will be compensated fairly." He reaches into the envelope again and pulls out a single object, a simple silver ring. No diamonds, no statement of wealth, just a band of metal meant for function, not display. "This," he says quietly, "is only for the cameras." Lena stares at the ring. Her heartbeat becomes a tight, painful flutter. "I am asking for trust," he says. "Not affection, not loyalty, just trust." The hallway feels impossibly narrow. Lena presses her hand to her chest, grounding herself. She thinks of her student loans, the rent increase notice taped to her refrigerator, the way she counted coins for gas last week. Reality presses against her ribs. And yet more than the money, more than the surreal nature of this moment, it is the sincerity in his tone that unsettles her. Elias Blackwood may command a corporate empire, but right now he looks like a man trapped between expectation and obligation. A man who needs her. Lena lifts her eyes. "Tonight," she whispers, "I will help you." Elias breathes in once a quiet exhale that sounds almost like relief. He nods, slow and deliberate. Then, "Let us begin." He places the silver ring in her palm. It feels heavier than it looks. He opens the ballroom door for her, and the music swells again, bright and celebratory, unaware of the arrangement forming in the shadows of its walls. Lena steps forward, clutching the ring, stepping into a world she never imagined. And beside her, Elias Blackwood straightens his shoulders. From a distance, they already look like a couple stepping back into the light. but only one of them knows the real storm waiting beyond the dance floor. The moment Lena and Elias step back into the ballroom, the atmosphere shifts. Not for everyone, but for enough of them. Heads turn. Conversations pause mid-sentence. The bride's father nearly drops his champagne flute. Elias Blackwood does not attend ordinary events, and when he does, he certainly never walks in beside a woman who looks like she does not belong to this gilded world. But tonight he walks beside Lena as if she has always been there. His voice barely rises above the music. "Remember what I told you. For the next hour you are not Lena Hart assistant. You are my wife." The word wife sends a jolt through her, not romantic but sharp, unfamiliar, like trying on a coat far too expensive to touch. He offers his arm. Lena hesitates, then rests her hand lightly on his sleeve. His suit fabric is smooth beneath her fingers, and she can feel the solid calm of his posture. He is a man used to scrutiny, and he carries it without flinching. They move together toward the center of the room. A cluster of executives approaches them almost immediately, each eager to greet the elusive CEO. Their eyes flick to Lena, with curiosity that borders on disbelief. She braces herself, expecting Elias to downplay her presence. Instead, he places a subtle but protective hand at her back. "This is my wife," he says simply. Lena barely manages to breathe. She offers a polite smile, hoping it does not look as shaky as it feels. One of the men laughs awkwardly. "I had no idea you were married, Mr. Blackwood." Elias answers calmly, "I prefer to keep my private life private." The executives nod, accepting this, with the same respectful fear that seems to follow him everywhere. Lena notices how he handles them, measured words, steady eye contact, no wasted movement. He is a man constantly navigating danger invisible to everyone else. But beside him she feels strangely anchored. A waiter approaches with a tray of glasses. Lena reaches for one, but her hand brushes the tray's edge, just enough to tilt a glass dangerously. Before it can fall, Elias steadies her wrist with gentle precision. He murmurs, "Breathe." His tone is not scolding. It carries something almost reassuring. A flicker of warmth beneath polished steel. Lena nods, her cheeks warming. She takes a careful sip of champagne, wishing the bubbles would settle her nerves. Across the room, the bride waves at her, eyes wide with delighted confusion. Lena forces a half-smile, unsure how to explain any of this later. She feels the weight of a dozen speculative looks, the kind that whisper stories before facts exist. But Elias stands unwavering beside her, shielding her with his presence alone. "Come," he says quietly. "There is someone you should meet." He guides her toward an older woman with sharp silver hair and a posture that speaks of decades in boardrooms. She turns and her gaze sweeps over Lena like a scanner evaluating data. "Mr. Blackwood," she says, "you did not mention a wife." "Not everything needs to be mentioned," Elias replies. The woman's eyes narrow slightly. "Some shareholders might prefer transparency." Elias's expression does not change, but Lena senses a subtle tension in the way his jaw sets. This is one of the people applying pressure on him, one of the reasons he needed this arrangement. He keeps his tone calm. "My marriage does not affect company operations. It affects public perception," the woman counters. Lena feels a spike of anxiety. She should not speak. She should stay silent. She is only here because of a contract. But something in the woman's dismissive tone stings. Before she can overthink, Lena lifts her chin. "With respect," she says softly, "marriage does not require public approval, only mutual understanding." The woman's eyebrows rise, surprised, maybe even impressed. Elias glances at Lena. For a fraction of a second, a flicker of gratitude passes in his eyes. A silent, "Well done." The woman steps aside with a thin smile. "Very well. I hope your partnership is stable." When she leaves, Lena exhales shakily. "I am sorry if that was too much." Elias shakes his head. "No, it was exactly what was needed." She looks up at him, startled. "Really, really," he says, "you handled yourself with clarity, better than most people in this room." Lena feels a quiet swell of pride, unfamiliar but welcome. But then Elias leans closer, his voice lowering into a tone that carries an undercurrent of warning. However, he adds, now you understand why I needed someone I can trust. She is not the only one watching me tonight. Lena follows his gaze across the ballroom. A man in a dark suit standing alone near the exit stares at Elias with an expression that is not friendly. Not at all. Elias straightens shoulders, tightening as if bracing for an incoming blow. That he says under his breath is where the real trouble begins. And for the first time tonight, Lena realizes the arrangement she agreed to is not just about appearances. It is about survival. His, and possibly hers. Lena feels the temperature of the ballroom drop the moment Elias's attention settles on the man near the exit. The stranger stands too still, watching Elias with a sharp focus that does not match the celebratory atmosphere. His stare is not curious, it is calculating. Who is he? Lena asks quietly. Elias does not answer immediately. His jaw tightens and something unreadable flashes behind his eyes. Not fear, but caution. The kind that comes from years of navigating powerful enemies. Someone who would prefer I lose everything, he finally says. Stay close. His voice is steady, but beneath it there is a tension Lena has not heard from him before. She moves slightly closer, feeling the invisible shift of danger in the air. The music swells again, the crowd laughing and clinking glasses, unaware of the silent confrontation shaping in the corner. The man steps forward. He walks with deliberate confidence, cutting through the room as if he owns the floor beneath him. Lena senses that this encounter is not optional. Elias squares his shoulders, his expression returning to its controlled CEO stillness. Mr. Blackwood, the man says, stopping a few feet away. Interesting evening for surprises. Some evenings require adaptation, Elias replies calmly. Lena recognizes the man now. She has seen him in articles and financial reports. Graham Hale, a major shareholder, a man rumored to be orchestrating a quiet attempt to seize influence within Blackwood Industries. Graham Hale's eyes flick to Lena, assessing her with a slow, dismissive scan. And who might this be? Elias does not hesitate. He places a light hand at the small of Lena's back, the gesture protective, steady. My wife, he says. Graham Hale's eyebrows rise. Your wife. Fascinating. I must say, Elias, you do move quickly when it suits you. His tone carries a blade's edge. Lena feels it. Elias does not engage with the provocation. If you have business concerns, you may speak with my office on Monday. Oh, it is not business, Graham Hale says. It is personal. Investors like stability. They like transparency. They like to trust that the man leading a multi-billion-dollar company is not making impulsive decisions. He looks at Lena again, this time more pointedly. And you expect the board to accept this? Sudden marriage, Lena swallows, her nerves sparking. She remembers Elias's warning. She remembers the contract's terms. She also remembers the way he stood beside her, earlier backing her without question. She steadies her voice. A marriage does not owe an explanation to an audience. Graham Hale studies her for a moment, then smirks. We will see if the board agrees. Elias steps forward, placing himself subtly between Lena and Graham Hale. That is enough. Graham Hale leans in slightly, lowering his voice. You cannot afford distractions, Elias, especially not ones that look manufactured. Lena's heart stutters. The word manufactured cuts deep. Graham Hale knows, or he suspects. Either way, the threat is real. Graham Hale straightens with a cold smile. Enjoy your evening. I doubt many more will be this peaceful. He walks away, leaving a trail of tension behind him. The moment he is out of earshot, Lena releases a breath she did not realize she had been holding. He knows, she whispers. Or he thinks he knows. Elias exhales slowly, his calm returning piece by piece. Graham Hale always overplays his hand. Tonight he tried to rattle us. And he succeeded, but not in the way he intended. Lena looks up at him. What does that mean? It means Elias says that this arrangement needs to be more convincing than ever. If Graham Hale pushes the board, he will use tonight as ammunition. We cannot give him anything real to point to. Lena nods, her pulse still unsteady. What do you need me to do? He studies her, his expression softening just slightly, a rare glimpse of vulnerability beneath the armor. I need you to stay with me for the remainder of the night, he says. Not as an accessory, as my partner. The room must believe in us. Lena feels a warmth rise in her chest, surprising and unsettling. She did not come here seeking importance. She did not expect to become a shield in a billionaire's corporate war. But she also realizes something he is not asking her to perform. He is asking her to stand with him. The band begins a slow song. Couples drift toward the dance floor. Elias offers his hand. Will you? He asks quietly. Lena looks at his outstretched hand, then into his eyes, calm, steady, but carrying the weight of a man who has weathered storms alone for too long. She places her hand in his, and together they step into the light. The band shifts into a soft lyrical melody as Elias guides Lena toward the dance floor. Warm lights ripple across the room, catching on crystal glasses and polished tableware, but Lena sees none of it clearly. Her awareness narrows to the steady warmth of Elias's hand around hers. He steps closer, resting one hand lightly at her waist. His touch is careful, almost formal, as if he is reminding her that the contract forbids anything beyond what appearances require. Lena places her other hand on his shoulder, feeling the silent strength beneath his perfectly tailored suit. The first few steps are hesitant. She is not accustomed to ballroom dancing, and her nerves twist with every movement. You are doing fine, Elias murmurs. I am trying, she whispers. There is nothing to try, he replies quietly. Just follow me. His tone is low and steady, and Lena feels her body gradually relax. He leads with practiced ease, guiding her through each slow turn. The ballroom fades into a blur of soft lights and drifting music. For the first time since the arrangement began, Lena senses the man beneath the title. Elias is not performing. He is not negotiating. He is simply present. They move in silence for several moments before Lena dares to ask, does he do this often? Elias understands without asking who she means. Graham Hale. Yes. He likes to find cracks in people, then he widens them until they break. And you think he saw a crack tonight? Elias pauses just long enough to reveal the truth. Yes. He saw you. Lena's breath catches. I did not mean to cause trouble. You did not, he says, his voice softening. In fact, you handled yourself better than many seasoned executives. Lena lowers her gaze, unsure how to hold that kind of praise. He lifts her hand slightly, drawing her attention back to him. Look at me, he says gently. She does. What she sees in his eyes is unexpected. Not coldness, not calculation, but something quieter, something almost grateful. You stood beside me, he says, when others would have retreated. Lena feels heat rise in her cheeks. She is not used to being seen this clearly. She is not used to mattering. The song continues and they sway with the rhythm. Elias's grip on her hand tightens almost imperceptibly, as if grounding himself in the moment. He exhales slowly, and Lena senses a crack in his armor, subtle but real. Elias, she says cautiously, is this arrangement truly only about appearances? He hesitates. A heartbeat. 2. Then 3. It began that way, he admits. Lena feels a shift inside her, a fragile stirring that feels too delicate to examine. But before she can ask more, a photographer approaches, camera raised. Mr. Blackwood, may I get a photo of you and your wife? Lena stiffens at the word wife. Elias does not. He adjusts his stance, angling toward the camera while keeping her close at his side. Of course. The photographer snaps several shots. Each flash brightens the room for a split second, capturing their joined hands, their close proximity, the illusion of intimacy. When the photographer leaves, Lena exhales shakily. That felt intense. Elias offers a faint smile. Welcome to my world. But the smile fades almost as quickly as it appears. He leans in, slightly lowering his voice. This will escalate now, he says. Photos lead to speculation. Speculation leads to questions. Graham Hale will use every outlet he can to twist tonight into something he can weaponize. Lena nods slowly. Then we must look convincing. Elias studies her, and for a moment he forgets the music, the crowd, the cameras. In a quiet voice he says, "You already do." Her breath stutters. Before she can respond, the music shifts again, and applause erupts as the bride and groom return to the center of the room. The moment between Lena and Elias dissolves under the noise, but it leaves a warm echo behind, lingering in the space between them. Elias offers his arm once more. "Come, there is one more part of the evening we must face." Lena takes his arm, and together they walk toward the next circle of watching eyes, unaware that the night's most defining moment is still waiting for them. As the applause fades and the newly married couple takes their place for speeches, Elias guides Lena toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. The lights dim slightly for the presentation, giving the room a warm glow that softens the sharp edges of everything. Lena feels her heartbeat slowing, but the tension inside Elias has not eased. He keeps his posture formal, but there is a heaviness in his eyes, something he has been hiding beneath polished control. "Stay here with me," he says quietly. Lena nods. She stands beside him, hands clasped, aware that the cameras continue to roam the room. But for the first time tonight, the noise around them seems distant, almost muted. Elias is very still, watching the bride's father speak at the podium, but Lena senses he is somewhere else entirely. She glances at him. "Are you all right?" His jaw flexes. "This kind of room is not easy for me." That surprises her. Elias Blackwood is supposed to be made for rooms like this. Rooms filled with wealth, influence, and the subtle power games that shape entire industries. But he continues, his voice quieter now. "In rooms like these, everyone has a role. Everyone has someone beside them. Except me." Lena feels a pang in her chest. It is the first time he has admitted something that sounds like loneliness. She turns toward him, her tone gentle. "You do not have to stand alone tonight." He looks at her, then really looks at her. Not as an assistant, not as a contractual spouse, but as someone who has offered him something he has not had in a long time, a moment of genuine human presence. His voice softens. "That is exactly why I asked for your help. You do not pretend. You do not play the game." Lena swallows. She had not realized her simplicity could be a strength in a world built on masks. A small ripple of laughter passes through the ballroom as the bride's father tells a heartfelt story. Elias does not laugh. His hand tightens slightly around the edge of his glass, tension returning to his shoulders. Lena reaches out without thinking and touches his forearm. "You can relax. No one here expects you to perform." Elias breathes in slowly, his posture shifting, not fully relaxed but softened. "I am not accustomed to being comforted. You looked like you needed it," she says gently. His eyes deepen dark with something unspoken, something almost fragile. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The world narrows again, as it has several times tonight, into the silent space where only their breathing fills the air. Finally, Elias clears his throat. "There is something you should know. Graham Hale is not acting alone. Several board members want a leadership vote. They will push harder after tonight." Lena tenses. "Because of the marriage, because they believe I am unstable enough to make emotional decisions," he says. "And a sudden wife gives them ammunition." "But you are not unstable," Lena insists. Elias gives a soft, humorless laugh. "They do not need the truth. They need a narrative." Lena feels the weight of his words. She suddenly understands the pressure on him more clearly, a man carrying an empire on his shoulders, while sharks circle waiting for a single slip. She hesitates, then says, "What can I do?" Elias turns to her fully now, his expression steady but his eyes holding that same quiet fracture from earlier. "You already did it," he says. "You stood beside me. Tonight that means more than you know." A warmth spreads through Lena's chest, unexpected and real. Before she can answer, another wave of applause erupts as the speeches end. Elias straightens again, preparing to face the room, but something has changed between them. Something that did not come from the contract. Something neither of them planned. And somewhere nearby, Lena notices Graham Hale watching them again. Except this time the look in his eyes is not curiosity. It is calculation. Cold. Sharp. Dangerous. The real storm is no longer approaching. It is already inside the room. Lena senses the shift before she fully understands it. The speeches have ended, the crowd disperses across the ballroom, and the air fills again with music and laughter. But beneath the polished noise something else hums. A low current. A warning. Graham Hale has not stopped watching. Elias sees it too. His posture tightens the way a man straightens before impact. He lowers his voice as he leans toward Lena. Stay close. Graham Hale will not approach again unless he believes he can create a scene. Lena nods, but her pulse stirs with unease. It is not fear for herself. It is fear for what Graham Hale might do to undermine Elias. The contract has no clause that prepares her for this part. Elias leads her toward a quieter walkway lined with tall indoor plants, as if trying to give both of them a breath. But before they can take 2 steps, a soft chime rings through the room. A phone notification. Then another. Then several more. Guests begin pulling out their phones, faces lighting with surprise and confusion. Murmurs rise. Heads turn. And slowly dozens of eyes shift toward Elias and Lena. Lena's throat tightens. Something is happening. Elias reaches into his pocket, retrieving his phone. The screen glows with an incoming alert from a financial news outlet. He reads the headline. His entire body goes still. Lena sees only a flash before he angles the phone away from her, but she catches enough to understand. Blackwood CEO secretly marries unknown assistant amid internal turmoil. Board members question his stability. Lena feels her stomach drop. They released it already. Tonight, no, Elias says, voice cold and steady. This was prepared in advance. Graham Hale had this ready before he even spoke to us. A wave of whispers sweeps the ballroom like wind across dry leaves. Is that his wife? Who is she? This is unbelievable. He must be losing control. Lena's chest tightens painfully. She has never wanted attention, and now an entire room of wealthy strangers is dissecting her existence in real time. Elias pockets the phone, but the damage is already growing around them. Graham Hale stands by the far wall, speaking quietly with 2 men Lena recognizes from corporate articles. Board members, his allies. Elias breathes in, slowly controlling the anger gathering beneath his calm exterior. This is his move. Leak the marriage, to destabilize me, to claim I am making reckless decisions. But you said the marriage is temporary, Lena whispers. That does not matter. In business, perception becomes truth long before facts do. The music continues playing, but the ballroom has changed. People who were celebrating moments ago now stand in clusters, glancing at Elias with calculated interest. Lena steps closer to him instinctively. What do you need me to do? Elias turns to her, and for the first time tonight his composure fractures. Not visibly, not dramatically, but in the smallest, rawest way. I need you, he says quietly, to walk with me. Right now. If we retreat, Graham Hale wins. If we stand together, we control the narrative. Lena nods even though her heart is pounding. They move forward side by side through a corridor of eyes and whispers. Every step feels heavier than the last. Elias lowers his voice further. What Graham Hale does not understand is that I do not break easily. But Lena hears the truth beneath the words. He is not afraid of Graham Hale. He is afraid that he has pulled her into something she never agreed to face. And as they reach the center of the ballroom once more, Lena realizes her role in this arrangement has changed. She is no longer just a contract partner. Tonight she is his shield, and Graham Hale plans to hit hard. The ballroom falls into a hush that is not silence but pressure. It presses against Lena's ribs as she walks beside Elias, every whisper sharpening into a blade aimed at him. At them. People part as they move, clearing a path without being asked. Not out of respect, out of anticipation. Something is happening, and the room wants to witness it. At the center, under the chandelier's pale glow, Elias stops. Lena stands at his side, feeling the weight of every glance, every half-hidden phone camera, every rumor swirling like smoke around them. Graham Hale steps forward from the far wall, his expression smooth with manufactured concern. "Elias," he says, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I wish you had informed the board before making such a significant change in your life. A secret marriage is quite the gamble for a man in your position." Lena sees it now, the trap. Graham Hale is framing this moment to make Elias appear unstable, impulsive, unfit to lead. Elias does not answer immediately. He breathes in once steadying himself. But Lena notices the tight pull in his jaw, the careful way he holds his shoulders as if balancing a collapsing world. Graham Hale continues, voice silk over steel. "Investors are already calling. They are concerned. A sudden marriage can signal emotional volatility, especially when the spouse appears to be." He glances at Lena with calculated disdain. An unvetted outsider. Lena's stomach twists, but she does not look away. Elias steps slightly forward. "My personal life is not an open forum for your manipulation." Manipulation. Graham Hale spreads his hands. "I am only addressing what everyone in this room is thinking." He looks around, inviting agreement. Several guests avert their eyes. Elias's voice remains low, controlled. "You leaked the story." Graham Hale does not deny it. The public deserves transparency, stability, leadership they can trust. Lena feels the room tilting toward Graham Hale's narrative, a dangerous shift. Elias glances at her, then just a second, but the meaning is clear. This is the moment everything turns. Lena inhales slowly. She thinks of the contract. She thinks of the terms. She thinks of how Elias carried himself all night, weathering storms with practiced grace, while protecting her at every turn. She steps forward before she fully realizes she is moving. "May I say something?" Lena's voice is soft but carries through the quiet. Graham Hale raises an eyebrow. "By all means." Lena lifts her chin. Her hands tremble slightly, but she clasps them together to steady herself. "You assume this marriage is reckless because it does not fit your expectations. But stability does not come from board approvals or public announcements. It comes from alignment, trust, and shared intent." A few guests murmur. Graham Hale's expression tightens. Lena continues, gaining strength. "You accuse him of impulsiveness, but Elias made a thoughtful choice, based on what he needed. In this moment, someone grounded, honest, and without agenda. That is not instability. That is clarity." Graham Hale chuckles, annoyed. "And you expect us to believe this was wise?" "Yes," Lena replies, her voice unwavering. "I do." The room stills. Even the music seems to soften beneath her words. Elias watches her, an unreadable emotion swelling behind his eyes, something fierce, something grateful, something that feels like the first breath after being held under water. Graham Hale steps closer, his tone sharp. "And what exactly is your intention in all this? What do you want?" Lena meets his stare head on. "Nothing. That is why he chose me." The words hang in the air like a sudden bell. Elias exhales, the tension in his shoulders, shifting, lightening. He turns back to Graham Hale. "You heard her," he says. "This marriage is not a liability you can exploit. It is a boundary you cannot cross." For the first time tonight, Graham Hale's confidence fractures. His mouth tightens. His eyes flick around the room, realizing he may have overplayed his hand. Elias takes Lena's hand, not for the cameras, not for the contract, but with unmistakable intention. He lifts his chin slightly. "My wife stands with me," he says. "That is all the stability I need." A ripple moves through the crowd, surprise, admiration, even a hint of support, and Lena feels it. This is no longer about a contract. It is a choice, his choice, and hers. The narrative is shifting, and Graham Hale knows he has just lost the first round. The ballroom holds its breath as Elias keeps Lena's hand in his, steady and sure. The tension that once pressed against them begins to loosen, reshaping itself into something quieter, something undeniable. Graham Hale steps back, forced into silence by a truth he can no longer twist. Around them, whispers soften. Curiosity turns into respect. The room is no longer waiting for Elias to fail. It is watching him stand. Elias leans closer to Lena, lowering his voice so only she can hear. You did not have to defend me, but you did. Lena shakes her head gently. I only said what was true. A rare warmth moves across his expression. Not dramatic, not sweeping, but real. The band begins a new song, gentle and unobtrusive. The noise of the crowd rises again, dispersing the last of Graham Hale's influence. Lena lets out a breath she did not realize she was holding. Elias turns toward her fully. There is one more thing. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out the envelope that began everything. The contract, the rules, the terms that shaped their night. He holds it between them for a moment. Then he folds it once and slips it back inside his jacket. The agreement served its purpose, he says quietly, but after tonight it is unnecessary. Lena's heart stirs. What does that mean? It means Elias says I do not want a partnership based on conditions. I want a choice, a mutual one. Lena feels the meaning settle into her chest like a warm weight. Elias. He lifts her hand gently, his gaze steady and unguarded. If you choose to walk away after tonight, I will respect that. But if you choose to stay, then we begin something new. No contract, no pretense. The chandelier lights reflect in his eyes, softening the sharpness she saw when the night began. The man before her is still powerful, still controlled, but no longer hidden behind the walls he once depended on. Lena inhales slowly, understanding the gravity of what he is offering. This is not an arrangement. It is trust. She squeezes his hand, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, let us begin again. Elias nods, a quiet exhale slipping from him almost like relief. He offers her the simplest, truest smile she has seen from him all night. Guests return to dancing. Conversation resumes. But Lena and Elias stand in the center of it all, grounded in a decision that belongs only to them. A new beginning, a new deal. Not on paper, but in truth. And as they step forward together, the room around them finally stops watching, because the story has already chosen its ending. Not a contract, not an arrangement, but the start of something real.